Hey everyone, it's Desert Sun Crypto. I'm your host, the Desert Sun. Listen, I was going through some of the videos, and it occurred to me, I seen and it sounded kind of negative about a lot of people in the space, particularly some of the officials that are either elected, appointed. But there are a lot of heroes just as much as there are villains, and I will say across the board, there's way more heroes. So I figured I'd feature some of them because as time goes on, they will be. Um, they're already looking at some of the pioneers of the regulatory part, which is important with crypto. Um, and so I didn't want to leave them out, or and I'd definitely be remiss if I left out Brian Brooks. Brooks is a personal favorite of mine. Always great interviews. Always seems very positive, but he's a very interesting player within the crypto space. Now, back in 2018, um, Brian Brooks left Fannie Mae as an exec, and he took over as the chief legal officer over at Coinbase. Now, this is during a time when Brad Armstrong and Coinbase really took off, and I can certainly say that's when I had jumped on. But Coinbase at the time, and it still is today, just a very easy to use exchange. They are always limited on some of the crypto they have. I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. But during this time, they were pulling some of the top execs from all over the place. Here's a list of some of the other execs and where they came from. We had some um, from Amazon, LinkedIn, Lyft, um, you name it. But I want to point that out because this is where Brian Brooks really gets his street cred in the crypto space as someone who is familiar with not only finance but also crypto. Now, Brian Brooks, he gets appointed um, in uh, May 2020, which is a few months after you know the pandemic hits, by Steve Mnuchin to head the um, the office of the controller of the currency. So they are the ones that dictate the currency that goes out, but more so, they supervise about 1,200 national, federal bank associations and branches. So Brian Brooks, this is actually where I found out about Brian Brooks. He gives some really great interviews, always very positive about the space, and here he is on um, NBC, and you can hear him out.
How should investors, particularly crypto investors, piece together who Biden has appointed so far in his team and where crypto could be going during his term?
Here's the funny thing about America is what matters more than what any given president or treasury secretary thinks about something is what people want. So remember, the taxi cab commissioners of America hated Uber and did everything they could to keep it out, but Americans wanted it, and it's here to stay. It's the same thing with Bitcoin. We've gotten to a point where adoption's too widespread, the technology's too important, the need for the currency and store of value is too important for it to go away. So I'm not too worried about that.
Brian Brooks is always just very positive. He knows the space. He understands it. Unlike any other person that I've ever heard talk about it, who is an appointed government official at the time. What ends up happening is not, um, during his time at OCC is Anchorage becomes the first bank to get the green light from the OCC to incorporate crypto into its into its operation, which is huge. Here was an article from when this happened back in November of 2020, if you'll indulge me. Before the announcement regarding Anchorage early this morning, yesterday, I had the opportunity to interview Brian Brooks, who was serving as controller of currency. Let's jump down. What all this means. It is indisputable that Brooks has been a trailblazer who has brought a very unique view to the world of banking. This position that he has taken has certainly raised eyebrows from Capitol Hill, the banking associations from multiple state regulators. However, Brooks explained how not taking action where he did, he would have left the United States behind other countries in the future of banking. He's 100% correct. Rather than go the route of regulation, Brian Brooks just gave the green light and made it possible for um, private banks to set up, uh, and get a charter, payments charter, um, for crypto. Now, during this time, he said exactly what they spell out is that he wanted the United States to get ahead, and that was the only the way that they were going to do it. As a matter of fact, Wyoming soon after becomes the one of the bigger uh, states to um, welcome a lot of businesses into the crypto space. And I wouldn't be surprised to see if Cheyenne, Wyoming, uh, in the future becomes kind of the hub and the mecca for crypto companies. Again, here's an article from when, um, uh, Anchorage. This is actually before custodian Anchorage seeks charter from crypto-friendly U.S. regulator OCC, which they got. This is put in on the 9th, and again, about a week later, they got the green light, which was awesome. I think Kraken then followed, and they were able to obtain a license. And so since then, I'd have to pull it up, but there's certainly been more. Now, shortly after January 14th of 2021, Brian Brooks steps down. New administration coming in, but he essentially did his part. Thank you for his service, and he moves on. And I thought Brian Brooks was going to resurface, someplace as maybe like a talking head, or maybe like one of the bigger companies, um, companies. Well, he certainly had, and he ended up over at Binance US. Now here's him. Now again, this is after he's left the OCC. Um, they're talking about him becoming the CEO of Binance US. Now, if you're not familiar with Binance US and how it's different from Binance, um, they are different in some of the uh, regulations they have in the U.S. versus what they have overseas. Binance has gotten into trouble here and there over a number of issues over the years. Binance US seems to kind of have a really um, a really calculated approach with Brian Brooks as a CEO. Here he is being interviewed, and he's talking about crypto. And I love it here because anytime CNBC talks about crypto, they always talk about it as though it's so complicated, no one's going to understand it. Here's Brian Brooks again. This is why I love the guy. Just calling it like it is.
Excitement ran up to almost 65,000, and then one tweet or one implied threat that could come from regulations here knocked about 20% right off the top, right off of a $1 trillion asset. Brian, what do you make of that, and what kind of future do you see in terms of regulations here and around the world?
Yeah, Joe, on the price thing, I mean, I guess, I mean, what the numbers really show is there were lots and lots of days in the last 6 months when Google stock went down 100 and 200 points, and there were some days when Bitcoin went up and down. But if you look at year-to-date returns on Bitcoin, it's significantly net positive, better than the stock market, and it's traded between 50,000 and 70,000 for a pretty long time, compared to 2 years ago when it might fall 50% in a week and fall another 20% the following week. So I don't actually see the volatility as extreme as some people say. Look,
Thank you so much. I mean, everyone talks about volatility. You know, just look, open the paper and see, what goes up and what's gone down over the last year. It's no different. It's hilarious how they always want to paint this narrative, and by I say they, not just CNBC, is that, oh, it's just going to take one tweet and everything's just going to take a dump. And don't get me wrong, it does. And a lot of people are not in here for a long time; they're in here for a good time, and they pump and dump. And so those folks that are in here for the short game, yeah, it's significant, and a lot of those people end up losing money because they trade after things start going down. So, um, yeah, that's Brian Brooks. Awesome, awesome retort there. And I was just looking today, and I started seeing these articles about, they're looking into, Brian Brooks and who he met with while he was with the OCC. Could there be something? There could be. I really hope not, because I really like the guy, and I would hate to see, him doing some kind of insider trading or something like that. Uh, but I think he's one of the best that we got out there, and certainly Finance USA was able to recognize that. He was able to move in as their CEO. I actually downloaded Binance US once it became CEO, because I figured that if there was any place that wasn't going to get touched by any kind of regulation, Binance US would certainly be it. So if you're interested, Binance, Binance US, let me pull it up. I can't spell this evening. And very, very typical of any of the other um, exchanges that are out there. I think second to Coinbase is my favorite. You get money instantly. Um, the tools they have are very easy to use, and they try to make it as complicated, less complicated as possible. So, um, again, not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Do your research. I am just showing you what where I've gone and why I like it. And if you see a lot of the videos and the content that I put out, a lot of it has to do with the people that are in charge. And Binance US, in my opinion, has one of the best CEOs that's out there. If you want, you can certainly do some research with regard to Brian Brooks. Again, every interview that I've seen him, he just knows exactly what he's talking about and clears the air up with regard to crypto. So that's all I've got, folks. Uh, Again, like, share, subscribe. I appreciate you. Thank you very much for watching.